Just right on the mark. Thank you so much for letting us know a little bit about BEEM. We're first of all, thank you, BEEM, for hosting us. It's a wonderful new experience for everybody, and I'm delighted that this is going to be introduced to a lot more people, because we do hope that we can do more with BEEM, not just we, but everybody else, and that we can spread the word through these types of events. So thank you so much for that. And of course, it's wonderful to welcome our audience. We see you in the chat. Yes, it's great to see so many people. Happy that everybody's with us. And it's my pleasure to welcome wonderful guests that we have, my colleagues, Mocha Jean Harrop, who is joining us from New Bedford, Massachusetts. Good morning, although it's already 1 o'clock on the East Coast. And the legendary director of programming and founding board member of the Austin Film Society, Chale Nafis, our hero. Thank you for being here with us, Chale.
Glad to be here.
So just to say that should you make any donations, we encourage you to do that, but it's not an obligation. That will be split between the two nonprofit organizations, Southeast European Film Festival in Los Angeles, SEEFest, that I run here in LA for the last 15, 16 years, and between the South Coast Film Festival in New Bedford, represented here by Mocha Harrop. So
yes, actually, it's the South Coast Film Forum, and we're a 501c3, and I am a content producer for them. And just want to point out, actually, that it's through the South Coast Film Forum that I became aware of this film collective. They're doing a virtual online screening through the November 23rd. And I'll put it in the chat. It's at socofilms.org that you can check that out. It's a great organization. And they're located in Greater New Bedford in Massachusetts.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This talk came about because about maybe a little more than a week ago, Mocha approached me, and we have put it together because we feel it's topical, it's interesting, gives us an opportunity to get all the people that are interested in sort of current affairs, but more globally, not just locally. And we hope that we can shed some light on the journalists and investigative journalists, especially, who are, that we dedicate this talk today to them. Today, we are inspired by Collective. It's a documentary film. It's Romania's submission for the Oscars. It is a film that's been picked up for distribution by Magnolia Pictures in the US. It's going to be available, it is already available almost everywhere stateside, courtesy of the distributor. And we have a gift for everybody, thanks to Mocha and the South Coast Film Forum, that people will get the link so that you can watch the film, the full film, Collective, which we really encourage you to do. It's a wonderful film. So this is a film that came about because of a terrible tragedy that happened in a nightclub where a fire broke out during a concert. A lot of people, 27 people died, and dozens more died in a hospital, not because of the burns, but because of the neglect and the endemic corruption throughout the system. The investigative journalist from a sports gazette pursued the story, which eventually toppled the government, and a new minister was brought in. So why don't we, Tess, if you would please show us the beginning of a little video that we have put together for you, that we see the full trailer of Collective, directed by Alexander Nanau.
Cum e posibil ca oameni care au ieșit de acolo să moară după 12 zile?
Deci, practic, ei au ascuns lucrurile astea, da? Dacă nu spunem lucrurilor pe nume, suntem complici. Povestea e atât de halucinantă încât mi-e teamă că o să parem nebuni.
sunt ministrul sănătății. Dar primul lucru pe care trebuie să-l faci ca să câștigi sau să recâștigi încrederea cuiva este să încetezi să-l minți.
Omor oameni.
Nu ne putem permite treaba asta.
Și cum ne se poate rezolva chestia asta?
Și noi am avut o încredere oarbă în autorități.
Iar ce vedem aici, de când am venit, dar tot ce e sub este putreț.
În momentul în care presa ajunge să facă reverențe autorităților, autoritățile se vor puta rău cu oameni, cetățeni. Întotdeauna se întâmplă asta pe în lume, s-a întâmplat și în cazul nostru.
Or follows incredible characters, I should say. He doesn't create them; they're actually real people, like the journalists and like the minister of health. We're seeing it from their perspective. We're really getting to know them. We're following a certain character arc, so we have this kind of drama. I mean, it's in many ways almost like a classic HBO documentary, where it's just like intrigue, drama, twists and turns. So it works so well as a documentary, an observational documentary. And then the other exciting thing about this documentary that really moved me is just how relatable it is to an American audience in terms of showing the difficulties that the press has in terms of the investigative journalism, how important, I should say, investigative journalism is to a healthy democracy, and then other issues that are touched on in the film, like the rise of populism. So I have a ton of things to say, but I'll end it there. For now, and just as an introduction to my overall reaction to the film. So much to talk about in so many ways.
This has been a golden age for that type of documentaries. So before we move on to the spotlight and Enron, any initial thoughts on Collective, because you just saw it, so you're the freshest among us who saw Collective.
Yeah, well, I always find it fascinating when we have documentaries that are the exposé themselves.
Yeah.
But this
Right.
is the second layer. And so it has even more fascination for me in the sense that we're seeing how these people, these journalists at a sports journal of all places, were able to uncover all this and continually uncover deeper and deeper layers. So by the end of the film, I was very worried for them, and the film ends with the threats, basically. So I wonder, I'm just curious, how are they now? I mean, a year or so later, are they able to continue this? So I have more questions than answers.
Yes, the Tolantan and his team are still very much active. Why don't we go to some wonderful examples from the US and from other places? And why don't we run Spotlight?
You got
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I do think that's one of the first films that comes to mind when you think of what films would you compare this to. Of course, we go to Spotlight and All the President's Men. And what's interesting about Spotlight, of course, is that it's a narrative, it's scripted. And it's essentially, it's about investigative journalists looking at breaking the case or the story of all the corruption with the Catholic priests and the cover-ups around the molestation and the sexual assault that they did. And it's a great choice there, Vera, to show this. And it's interesting to compare, right, what you could do with the narrative and what we see with our documentary. In some ways, I think our documentary is actually even more dramatic than Spotlight.
I think so. It has that the power of something that we are in the newsroom. We are with them. I felt like I was in the car when they were taking pictures of the people taking the evidence. It was just that is really the talent of Alexander Nano, the director. This is not his first documentary, but by far, it is just really a tour de force, I think. But let's see, in the interest of time, let's maybe just see Spotlight so we can, because it is a great story about a wonderful group of journalists from the Boston Globe.
Boston priest molested kids in 6 different parishes over the last 30 years. The church found out about it and did nothing. We haven't committed any long-term investigative resources to the case.
No, we haven't.
And that's the kind of thing your team would do.
Spotlight? Guys, listen. Everybody's gonna be interested in this. Obviously, the church will fight us very hard.
Trying to get some background information.
I don't want you recording this in any way, shape, or form. Nothing.
We understand you've settled several cases against the church.
I can't discuss that.
There aren't any records of any of these settlements.
Nope.
When you're a poor kid from a poor family, and when a priest pays attention to you, it's a big deal. How do you say no to God?
Spotlight.
Is this the tip line?
You think he's got something?
I want to keep digging.
We need to focus on the institution. Show me that it came from the top down.
We need the full scope. That's the only thing that will put an end to this. Now let's take it up to Ben, let him decide. We'll take it to Ben when I say it's time. It's time, Robbie! It's time! They knew, and they let it happen. 2 kids! Okay? It could have been you. It could have been me. It could have been any of us. We gotta nail these scumbags. We gotta show people that nobody can get away with this. Not a priest or a cardinal or a freaking pope.
Some comments, Mocha, on
Well, yeah, but I mean, you know, the big battle in that newsroom and what created some of the drama for the film that director Tom McCarthy had to, you know, kind of hang his hat on is that when do you make that call for when to bring the story to light? Because as we learn in the film, they had the information about individual priests that they could expose. But if they wanted to do what the leader there, Michael Keaton character, wants to do, which is ultimately expose the institution of the Catholic Church, an extremely powerful institution, you have to wait. They had to wait. They had to do more of that tedium of the investigative work and build the story and connect the dots. And it takes a really long time. And it's really hard to hold on to that story when you have something that's already explosive, you know, to have the patience to wait because there's a bigger fish to fry. You know, there's something greater there. So we have that tension. And then what if we were to compare it to what happens in Collective is that no one actually knew, like our investigative journalists didn't know or suspect how deep the story would go. The twist is that they thought they were doing one story on the what was happening to the burn victims in the hospitals and why so many of them were dying who really should have survived their wounds, the people who had survived the initial fire. And we look at that one story of corruption with the diluting of the disinfectant. And then it just like, oh my gosh, you know, there's just layers of corruption in the healthcare system in the government. And it's being revealed to us. So I think it's just interesting to think about how the tension is represented. The journalistic tension is represented in both films. And, you know, Tollington, it's interesting. We need a Ruffalo in Spotlight. It's going to be a pretty tedious film otherwise if we don't have some actors creating this, you know, this urgency. Whereas, I mean, obviously so much went into the editing and the skill in creating Collective, but you didn't need to rely so much on the drama of the individual characters of the people because the story itself was revealing and creating drama in real time.
Well, thanks to Nano's, you know, wonderful talent that he has displayed in this film. I think we can expect a lot more from him. I suggest that maybe we go through both of the 2 next clips, The Third Man, and then jump into Enron. And The Third Man is here. Well, it's a famous movie, of course, Sir Carol Reed directed back in '49, but it's such a similar situation that, you know, the main character, it's from the book by Graham Greene, was diluting antibiotics to make profit. So that's why we have this clip for you, very short clip where Orson Welles is playing the bad guy. So why don't we go through this and then move on to Enron?
Nobody thinks in terms of human beings. Governments don't. Why should we? They talk about the people and the proletariat. I talk about the suckers and the mugs. It's the same thing. They have their 5-year plans. So have I. I used to believe in God. Well, I still do believe in God, only. I believe in God and mercy and all that, but the dead are happier dead. They don't miss much here, poor devils. What do you believe in?
Everyone had their hand out at the table. They were all being paid, and as long as Enron continued, they received their fees. They were a part of the process. So it's hard now to say, oh, we didn't know anything.
Had we known then what we know now about Enron's practices, we would not have engaged in these transactions with Enron.
The facts that we now have come to light about Enron, however, were not known at the time.
I believe that the Citigroup professionals involved with these transactions acted in good faith.
I'd like you here to look at one city email, Exhibit 333I.
The email trail here is all too lurid. Oh, for instance, one email I remember where the banker writes, Enron loves these deals. They produce cash, but they don't have to show the debt on the balance sheet. Now, a high school student can figure out that the banks were all knowing participants in this wrongdoing.
Thanks to journalists and to investigative filmmakers, I would like to give, a nod to them, people like Alex Gibney and Laura Poitras and Michael Moore and Tom McCarthy and others. I mean, the filmmakers are also following in the footsteps of investigative journalists to uncover these stories and bring them to light. Any comments before we move to some journalists that we would like to highlight in Eastern Europe? Mocha, Chale?
In my research for this conversation, I did look at a Reuters Institute report that just shows how perilous it is in Eastern Europe right now, with folks who are being targeted, murdered, shot for publishing. You're up against like actual hit jobs. And then also another thing that's affecting journalists is the endless, the libel suits that they face. And then there was one which can bankrupt you. If that's like an old trick, even if you don't have a case, just bankrupt them in court. But also, I was reading in Croatia, there are laws against defaming, insulting the state and its symbols. So you can get sued for publishing humiliating media content, even if you're publishing actual facts and truth.
Well, Enron just reminded me that, of course, America has corruption. It's just more expensive than anywhere else. It's always absurd to think we don't have bribes and corruption and all that. But of course, I won't get too political, but of course, Trump would love to have the laws that would allow him to silence journalists in America.
Well, speaking of journalists who still have a voice, why don't we move to the wonderful, great journalists in Southeast Europe so that we see that there is a lot of people there who are, doing their job and wonderfully. So why don't we move to the Insider clip, and then we'll see a few faces just so that we have an idea of that there are others other than people like Colentin in Romania.
I also just wanted to call out that Tudor with us in chat mentioned the book Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow, which was an incredible piece of investigative journalism, very timely and appropriate, that came out this year and really remarkable even as a book. So thank you for calling that out, Tudor.
So we just keep going. This is an investigative network of journalists from many different countries in the region. And I think that, that's why we have prepared these title cards for you to just give a sense of what is available out there in the part of the world that is still not very well known. This is the very first independent gazette in Poland. Andrzej Wajda, a filmmaker, was one of the founders. And this is like one of the current front pages that I just prepared for you. And this is their legendary editor-in-chief, Adam Michnik, who, this is another terrific journalist, uncompromising in Sarajevo. And so Reporters Without Borders, of course, like Reporters Sans Frontières. And so everybody's been asking about what happened to Jamal Khashoggi. And it's just a few names to give you a sense of who these people are and put a face on them, because they are usually writing, they are writers. Andras is, again, the criminal charges were filed against him because he was using the publicly available information, and the judiciary in Hungary has filed, they're trying to silence journalists, not just in Hungary, but in other places, using the GDPR, which is the European Union's, data protection, personal data protection. So, different sophisticated or less sophisticated ways of silencing journalists are being used everywhere. But they are still there. They're still writing. They're still, pushing and, digging for the story.
Vera, I actually wanted to pick up on something that Chale brought up about just how significant it is that the Story Collective was broken by sports journalists, right? It seems very strange that it would be in a sports journal. And I know that Tollington got into investigative journalism because he actually did a couple stories about some corrupt ministers of sport, and it resulting in both of them being fired. And I mean, comparing it to news in the US, thinking about, the minute Bob Costas even mentioned something political about China, like at the Olympics, almost a decade ago, he almost got fired. I mean, there's such a separation between sports and politics, because sports news is considered just entertainment, and the parent companies will really come down on you if, as a sports journalist, you try to blend the two. And so I'm curious, is that something that is common in East Europe, where sports journalists don't have as much pressure to do that entertainment bottom line, or is it what we're seeing is just a really truly exception with Tollington?
Both yes and no, because the main thing is really that the main media, which are either owned by the state or by some big conglomerates like Alex Springer from Germany that owns some, not some, but quite a few media outlets. So they are more or less apologetic, and they are just, providing entertainment, celebrity coverage, and so forth. So it's up to the independent media. So sometimes it's a small TV station that operates for a while, and then it either becomes absorbed in the system, it was bought by somebody else, or another editor is brought in, which is what happened in some of the countries where, like the case in point, Hungary, not just with journalists, but for example, at some point they just fired all the directors of cultural institutions to bring the people who would do their bidding, the authorities' bidding. So that's what happens. So we are having a panoply of independent outlets that are, doing the investigation. Many of them have gone to the internet. So much as we sometimes, have more than enough of the internet, this is a great platform for people to, get the story out. So it's not just a sports gazette. It is, broadly speaking, independent journalist.
Is the Sports Gazette a truly independent media outlet? It's not controlled. It's not owned by a bigger media company.
I don't think it is. I can't, tell you 100% because that's something that I would have to investigate to be absolutely sure, but I don't think it is. Again, on one hand, it might be that because the societal structure is not as well developed as, for example, here, where you have, really, how to say that, the sophisticated ways of controlling things and media and the internet and so forth. But over there, the societies are still struggling with the infrastructure and a whole lot of other things. So, which is actually sometimes good, because it allows space for people to do things before the powers that be even figure out what's going on, because many of them are inept, incompetent, because they're only in it for, like greed and fraud. So I mean, that's the conundrum. That's the contradiction of the place.
When you were talking about the internet, of course, that's where more and more people get their news from. And as wonderful as investigative journalism can be, I still feel more comfortable when it's coming through some medium I already know, New York Times, Washington Post, something like that, because the dark side of all of this on the internet is QAnon, things like that, with millions of people subscribing to, from my point of view, insane points of view. So I can't remember the name of this new organization, but a number of journalists, now you can subscribe directly to them for like $5 a month or something. I was just reading about it a few days ago. And it's free for readers, but then there's a particular journalist you like, then you subscribe to them, $5, $10 a month. So that's all still sort of uncharted territory. But it's all still in a state of flux, of course.
There are, just a couple of individuals that I thought would be interesting for our audience to see, and these are it was a very famous satirical newspaper, Feral Tribune. Feral is the word in Dalmatian, on Dalmatian coast in Croatia for the lamb. So they were obviously making a reference to the International Herald Tribune. So Feral Tribune was like the Onion here, and but the authorities fought it hard, and they kept filing charges, and so they shut down. The journalist, however, especially the editor-in-chief, is still very active in writing.
Kao novinar dužan si da svjedočiš nekoj stvarnosti oko sebe, ne da je falsificiraš, ne da je prikazuješ drugačijom. Većinu tih stvari koje smo mi objavili, koje su skandalizirali i izazvali ovdje nacionalnu neugodu, nije ih bilo s profesionalnog stanovišta teško otkriti, nego se samo trebalo odvažiti da ti kažeš ono što niko drugi neće da kaže.
Osjetiš neku vrstu uzaludnosti svega toga što radiš. Pišeš o zločinima iz broja u broj, pišeš o pljačkama iz broja u broj, pišeš o kriminalu, a ne događa se ništa. Sve ostaje isto.
Yeah, please stop here the video. That would be the last before we part company this morning. But going back to Mocha's question about, is it the Sports Gazette unique case in Romania, that they were the ones who really did the investigation. So Feral Tribune was a satirical newspaper. So they did what nobody else, wanted or dared do, especially in the height of the 90s war. So these are the outlets that really, need our support of the public, and the journalists who created them, like the two that we have seen, especially Viktor Ivancic, the editor-in-chief. I mean, these are heroes, for all of us, even beyond beyond Croatia. So they did through humor, parody, satirizing, lampooning, the top levels of the government, presidents and others. They really did a fantastic job. So they are now part of history. They are people that, just like Tolontan, who is the hero in Romania. I would like to hear more from both Mocha and Chale. generally about both the investigative journalists and the filmmakers who go out there and do these difficult stories.
I mean, I just wanted to say that I like that you're bringing in this example of political satire and how, I mean, Jon Stewart, who created The Daily Show, right, used to talk about how it's really in our media environment right now, it's the comedic news actually that you can trust the most, because he used to explain it when if it's not true, it's not actually funny, right? Like what makes The Daily Show funny is that we're actually using real events and showing them, framing them, commenting on them, creating satire in some way. But if he were just making things up about what, politicians do, that's not really all that funny. And so it's almost like having it as a comedic structure keeps you more honest than in some ways, with the having a viewership 24-hour news cycle. I'm thinking CNN, of course, I'm thinking Fox, I'm thinking all of those that have kind of a baked in incentive to, well, I don't want to, I'll just kind of leave it at that. My original point just being that in our current media environment, it's interesting how globally it's comedic news that we can almost trust as being more honest.
In print media, Maureen Dowd and Borowitz, I love them because they're doing exactly that. Borowitz probably takes it even farther into the absurd, but he's already dealing with something absurd, so he just adds another 5% to it.
Well, on that note, first of all, I would like to ask our audience to please pause your questions, ask your questions in the chat. And while you're thinking of your questions, we will show the final clip, which is a political satire, very successful, wonderful film called The Announcement from Turkey. Again, another country where we see it only through the lens of what we read about whatever the president did, or there's a conflict in the region. In the 60s, there were 60s and 70s, there were a lot of coups in Turkey, almost like every month. And so this one is lampooning, and you will see almost the entire story and the style of filmmaking in this clip.
Saygıdeğer dinleyenler, İstanbul Radyosu'ndasınız. Bendeniz Naim Meriç. Dünyadan Melodiler programında Mira Meyri,
Arkadaşlar an itibariyle silahlı kuvvetler yönetime el koymuştur.
Bu mu anons makinesi?
Evet efendim, budur.
Tamam, başlayalım o zaman.
Ben telaştan söylemeyi unuttum. Bunu çalıştırmakla görevli personelimiz şu saat itibariyle radyomuzda mevcut değil efendim.
Murat tut şunu!
Ama isterseniz evinden alabiliriz. 60 ihtilalinde zaten Tevfik Bey'i evinden almıştık.
Ne oldu lan?
Mazot bitti galiba abi.
Biz bu Tevfik'i nasıl bulabiliriz? Acil bir işimiz var.
Soyadı neydi?
Soyadı?
Ama yani en kötü Ankara Radyosu'ndan anons yapılacak değil mi yani sonuç olarak? Yani biz yapamasak da çok önemli değil. Kemal söylediklerini duymamış olayım. Bizim görevimiz İstanbul Radyosu'ndan bu anonsu yapmak.
We have some questions. Oh, Tudor, you'd like to see The Announcement? Yes, it's a great movie. It's a funny film and very good. Unfortunately, no distribution in the U.S., but maybe we can do something about it. So we have a question from Mihai. He'd like to know the impact that the release of these documentaries and others had on the topic they uncovered. Any, I can say that the collective toppled the investigation toppled the government, and the new Minister of Health was brought in. That's the young man in the movie who tried his best to do better, but he has since resigned, and he used to live in Vienna, and I believe that he's either back there or just going back and forth because it's so difficult. That again is the paradox. You uncover something, but for the system to right itself, that's another battle. So any thoughts on that from you, Mocha?
Well, yeah, I'm wondering, and maybe Tudor might have, one of our guests might in our chat might know this, but so we know that Tollington's work helped topple that first Minister of Health. And then the film gets released, and as the film within the diegesis of the film, the Social Democrats take over the party, the leftist party, but really pretty corrupt. And the film exposes that, and I wonder if now that the film has been released since I think September, if there's been any repercussions on that Social Democrat Party that is currently in power right now.
That is, I think, what is going to be the impact of any change in any country, I think, is because that does not happen overnight. It's a systemic problems, and not just political problems. I think the economical issues, and by all accounts, Romania is one of the worst affected countries by the number of its citizens who work abroad. So they have an additional problem, and we have shown some films about it, that a lot of children are growing up without their parents. So they are either with their grandparents or in some different circumstances, but they are sort of left to themselves. And that is a big, big problem because there are no jobs, and people go abroad to work, and they come once a year, even less. So, in a society like that, it's really difficult to make changes. And of course, populists are always better at, fanning an excitement, a false one, but that's how it is. Chale, what do you think about the impact of generally, in your lifetime with movies? What would you say, how much of an impact artists, filmmakers, journalists can have to affect change?
With certain audiences that are already inclined, I think, then yes, they reinforce more often than change minds. I would love to believe that art of any sort, particularly these, could change minds enough to make changes in a country. And our recent election, although it's going the way I wanted it to go, there's still 73 or 74 million people that disagree with me, despite all the investigative journalism in regard to the president. So let's just say I'm cautiously optimistic. I have seen some changes through arts, but in the long run, yes, society changes, but it's not because of one particular film or music.
Well,
so that's the cynical 78-year-old talking. Sorry.
Well, we are all, to some degree cynical maybe these days, but at the same time, we do what we do like we do today to pay tribute to journalists, to pay tribute to, the more people here, because there will be a student who will be inspired by, and then go on to become the next editor-in-chief or investigative reporter who will go and uncover the story that down the road will affect change. We have to focus on the good guys and brave people who are our heroes, and good filmmaking, I think, is what we all want to support.
I definitely do believe that young minds can be strongly impacted by a film, a piece of music, any kind of art. So therein lies the hope, provided they start voting.
Well, we have a comment from Polo that, and he works with school districts in California, several school districts. And he says these films do inspire students and at times ground them in their pursuit of social justice. So, yeah, absolutely. I think, we have to believe in that. I would like to ask each one of you, what is the movie that you next plan to see? And any recommendations for our audience of other films not to be missed?
Sure. I mean, speaking of films that have, actually affected change and inspired people, I mean, we can look at Frederick Wiseman's early work, Titicut Follies, right? About the, mental institution about 30 minutes away from where I'm currently at in Bridgewater. And the effect of that documentary where he showed the abuses was that the institution was shut down, right? Talk about having some power there. And then this perfect question, Vera, because the next film that's on my list to see actually is Wiseman's latest documentary, City Hall, which is about Boston and Mayor Marty Walsh and showing the inner workings of government. So I'm excited to see that and where he goes with that. And I think that's been very, Wiseman's always been very inspiring in films like Titicut Follies. I mean, I would teach that film in class, and I know students would respond very strongly to that. There's another really great film called The Cats of Mirakatani. I'll put it in the chat. That was one of the films that it ends up dealing with the history of Japanese internment in the US, and does it in such a delicate and beautiful way. And it was like, that's my sleeper hit. It's a documentary that I would teach at the Austin Community College that I thought, oh, maybe my students would just tolerate. So it's a personal documentary and it's a little, low production value in some ways. It ended up being one of their favorite films. And I think because it just shows such great humanity. So I'll end with those two recommendations.
Chalet?
I'm going to watch the Turkish film, The Announcement, since one of our guests said that it's on Prime.
Yeah.
Now, Mocha, can you tell us where people can see that we want to give a gift to our audience to watch Collective?
Yes.
Because as a thank you for joining us, so why don't you tell them how to do that?
Absolutely. So it's available actually through November 23rd to the first 300 people at socofilms.org. Now, I know they're working on, they actually sent it out in the newsletter. They sent the link and the confirmation code. So you may actually have to sign up to be on the newsletter. You can send a message to info@socofilms.org and just let them know that you want to see the film. And again, you have until November 23rd to watch it for free online. Thank you, Magnolia Films, for making the film accessible to us.
I think it's something that we should follow with the next conversations that we have on our radar, that we do it like this, that we would give that as a gift to our audience to watch the movie, or at least give them an access or tell them where they can go to see it, rather than just, showing maybe the full film, but first, sort of whet their appetite for certain types of films and tell them why they really would enjoy seeing something. So I think this is a good way to go forward.
Absolutely. And I just want to say also thanks. I know Charlie's going to sign up too, but I want to say thanks to the people in our chat, to our viewer participants. It's been really great interacting with you. This is really interesting to see how this works on BEEM. BEEM, I appreciate you too. And all the folks who signed in from all over the world who have been contributing to this conversation. I'm learning things, a lot of things from our chat folks. And I really appreciate this interaction and this chance to connect.
Chalet, any parting thoughts?
I feel more positive after this hour than I did earlier this morning after watching the film. So I thank you for changing my mood, even though I expressed it really darkly.
This is great that that we lifted your mood up. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm so glad to hear this. This is the best comment of the day. Wonderful.
Very good.
Well, I think that's really important. I mean, when you're watching really hard-hitting films, or let's face it, a film that it's not the feel-good film of the year, but what makes the experience special is, and redeeming, right, is that, I mean, of course, watching the film in and of itself, but, gosh, being able to talk about it with people who, all kinds of different people, whether you're steeped in film theory or you're steeped in the experience of the content of the film, or just to be able to process like that. That is part of the pleasure and joy of cinema. So no matter how dark the film is, it's still rewarding and engaging when you can talk about it with other people and get perspectives. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that here.
Well, I think that, for me, it was a film that also inspired me, much as we see what they talk about. But imagine if there was no one who would have exposed this, that everybody just remained indifferent, like, oh, it's too bad people died. No, it is now a document, it is on record. And I think recognizing those families that lost their, it's such a moving scene at the cemetery with the parents who are mourning their son, a beautiful young son. It is, I think that it inspires in the right way, that it inspires and touches our humanity, I think, which is what you want with a good book, with good movie, with, a good, article in a newspaper by a journalist, that you say, yes, somebody speaks for me. So they give the voice to, so I relate to what Chalet says. I'm in a, better mood, not just because of the film, but being in the community of people like you and our wonderful attendees here that we have in the chat. So, and of course, thank you, BEEM. We hope to be back with more. Mocha, Chalet, already have some ideas for future talks? Tess, Mihai, Mocha, any parting words?
No, I think I've said it. Yes, to end on a positive note, I think this film is quite wonderful in how it speaks truth to power, and there's really just an exceptional inspiration that comes from that.
Thank you all. It was a total pleasure, and here's to more.
Thank you. Bye.
Until next time.
Until the next one, yes. Bye.